Stop me if you hear this already. It's a final. Yes, the Houston Dash has to play a game this Friday that seems to be almost like a final. This after losing 4-0 at the Washington. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Orange or Blueprints podcast with at BioCitySoccer.net. A little bit earlier normal than we usually do on a Thursday evening, just because we want to be spontaneous and everything now. But as your host, Manny Olivares, fortunately, Diego is out of town traveling, so he won't be able to join us. But we do have a few guests, a guest that's actually is Rios. So if you know her, if you're all around Houston, Danielle from the Houston Chronicle. Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks for having me.
I know Danielle has been, if you've seen her of the Houston Chronicle, she has been around, especially with the Houston Rockets, and been following the Dash. Just a quick before we go on this, just to get everyone to get to know you, Danielle, about your job and what you do for Houston sports.
Yeah, so I am the Rockets beat writer for the Houston Chronicle. I previously was a sports enterprise reporter, which kind of means that I do a lot of different investigations and profiles and stuff encompassing all sports. And we don't have a full-time soccer writer anymore, unfortunately. So I like to try and cover the Dynamo and Dash when I can, but I'm not there every single day like some of you guys are. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the team in any means, but I was able to spend some time behind the scenes with the Dash a couple weeks ago, leading into their win against Chicago at home, kind of to trying to get a sense of what Fabrice Gautrat and Angela have tried to do in their first season with the club, and how they've gone about not just getting results on the field, but trying to reform the culture.
Yeah, I think it's a good refresher to know that. I know your job is always busy, to up and down stuff, but it's good to see. I think the media attention. I think especially to soccer, it's hard. It's a hard niche to get into, but I think for most people. But it's really good to see that like yourself and other people as well, are going into that as major media outlets as well. I think just going into we don't want to talk about. Well, we do have to talk about it, sadly, but the game against Washington Spirit, 4-0. It was really, really one-sided. I think coming ahead of this game, everyone knew it was going to be a hard pill to swallow for the Houston Dash. GIF Monday had a fun day on Sunday with a hat trick in the first half, and then of course Cantore with her goal in the second half. Not a really good game if you're a Houston Dash to watch. I think it was always going to be a one-sided affair. I think I just want to pitch it to you, Daniel. I know you have watched a little bit about it. I think does this result really impact the Dash's season moving forward?
Yeah, it does. I mean, every match is important at this point based on where they are in the standings. They were, I think, 2 points below playoff line prior to that game. They're only 3 points below based on some results from other teams right now, but every point matters. Goal differential is a huge thing as well, and a 4-0 scoreline is not good, but more than that to me, and I wasn't able to actually watch the full Spirit game, but I saw some highlights, and it was just, I think the Dash are really suffering from disconnectivity in the back, with Jane Campbell out right now, and with the team getting used to not having Natalie Jacobs at center back. I think those two things, the defense is really suffering. It seemed like they got really overloaded through the middle on a bunch of those goals. I thought a couple of them too, Abby could have saved them perhaps, but overall it was just Spirit were able to just overwhelm them through the middle, which should be the strongest part. When it was Natalie and Paige, I think for most of the season, that was one of the things that helped the Dash kind of turn things around in the second half. And now they're having to integrate a new teammate at an essential position while they're making this playoff push against a lot of teams that are already in playoff position, and it's just not ideal.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good point on that. I think it's very interesting how the back line has been changing. I think if you noticed a few games, that Fabrice always tinkle with the back line, either putting Michelle Lozzi instead of Chapman, putting Avery Patterson onto the left back, or even just stick with Alicia Chapman. We still haven't seen Lisa Boateng in left back, another acquisition to the defense as well, has been prowess to her attacking wing back position, a false back that would like to get forward and like to add to the attacking makeshift in the team. It causes a dangerous threat to most teams, as she saw in the Italian national team. I think my question to you: you think it's something that the team moving forward should solidify it and that get a for sure backline? I think it's hard to know that with Jane. I think out for this game as we got the availability that she's out for this game, and then still integrating other players as well. Do you think this is maybe one of the pieces that the Dash will suffer with the last 4 games coming up, especially against harder teams now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think some lineup continuity would help, but like I also understand as far as like Boateng goes, I've also wondered why we haven't seen her more, but then you could say, well, then they're having to integrate another new player into that back line that could also cause problems. So, it's kind of a high risk, high reward situation. And, Chapman, for the most part, I thought until the last couple games has been really good there. So they, there wasn't really that much cause to make a change. I think it's just so week by week with them, but I think in goal, because it really just has been Jane Campbell back there between the sticks for the entirety of the club's existence. Whenever she is not back there, even in games where, credit to Abby Smith, she was fantastic against Chicago, I thought, when she had to come in with no notice after Jane got injured. But it's going to be a really, really hard thing to overcome anytime there's anyone other than Jane Campbell in goal, because the team is just not used to it. And that is an unfortunate downside of having a player who has been so good and so essential and integral to this club for so long, is that their absence becomes more pronounced.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think what was an interview, I think, well, post game conference, I think last year, I think she kind of doesn't want to refer herself as Miss Houston. I think she's been to the team longest tenured player at this point, other than Kay Lynn. I think it's just been a good staple of how vital has she has been to this team. I think how she is the face of Houston, but also she is the face of the back line. So if she's not there, basically you're down a player. Even though it doesn't look like it, but it feels like it sometimes at some points. But I think with, of course, as well, with a new visionary team, I think you just want to pick your head on things. I know you have covered on and off the team, mostly at the end of the part of each season. Do you feel like there's something different with this team now than years prior?
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, I was not behind the scenes with teams prior in the way that I just was a few weeks ago. But to me, it does seem like the players are genuine when they're saying that they believe that has been a shift, there's been a turnaround. They are genuinely happy with how things are going. Like, that's what I wanted to see for myself, right? Because of course, Fabrice and Angela and the leadership, they're going to want to say that things are great now and they've, found a formula. And it wasn't necessarily that I didn't believe them, but I think it's always better to see it firsthand and hear it from these players, especially these players who have kind of had these false starts time and time again with different coaches coming in here, where maybe each time they genuinely did think, oh, this time it's going to work out, but then it didn't. So, because of the history, that's really why I kind of wanted to go and see. And from what I saw, I do think Fabrice's leadership style, which is very collaborative, very communicative, I think it is working with a lot of these players. I think a lot of the new players that came in this past offseason also have been really essential to the team's success on the field. Yasmin Ryan, for instance, seems to have found her form. And she basically told me, like, look, I feel like me and all the other new girls, we just needed some time to gel. Like, the team needed time to find its identity on the field, needed time to even have that trust in the coaching staff, right? Like, even if you come in with the best of intentions, like, they're still all getting to know each other. And so it kind of took until that international break, I think, for everybody to find their footing, for them to say, okay, this is the way we want to play on the field, and this is the way we're going to go about doing it. And I think the lineups the first half of the season weren't even really that consistent either, because they were still figuring that out. So once they figured that out and said, all right, here's our consistent 11 on the field, here's kind of what we expect from each person and the role that everyone's going to play, and got in that routine, I think that really helped in terms of results. But it really was also up to the coaching staff to not just pay attention to what's happening on the field, but what's happening off the field. And they've implemented a couple of things like little like bi-weekly team awards and stuff. Sitting in a team meeting, it was almost like I felt like I was in high school again, where Fabrice was, leading film, or an assistant coach sometimes would be leading film, and they're, asking questions, and, it's silent for like 30 seconds. And then eventually like player says something and that kind of gets the ball rolling. But it was very like back and forth. It's not just like, okay, you sit here, watch this, let me tell you how it is, and then we got onto the field. It was very much a back and forth dialogue.
I think it's a good inside view of the team. I think from outside, and also what we see from press conferences as well, you seem like a whole different attitude and structure in the team. I think coming from the last regime with Alex Singer, I think not saying that she did a bad job on her end. I think it was just maybe a step too much for her in a position that's really new to the dash. I think she has too much to handle. While you integrate with someone like Angela, who has done it at Angel City, and off the bat, you saw, I think, the determination she had to restructure the team, to reform the team, to see, okay, the dash has potential. But maybe I think when I first saw the appointment, I was like, okay, maybe it will take maybe another season. And I think this far into the season, the way how they play is very, I think a fresh, yeah, fresh, uh, fresh air to breathe. Yeah, I think you know the saying. I was like, but it was something different that the dash hasn't experienced, and so it was just wow. Okay, the dash has made so much jumps, and I think what really took notice, I think for me, that I think previous regimes, you buy these young players, you buy a Zoe Matthews, you buy a Rebecca, and sometimes you just leave them on the bench and they just get wasted with talent, like you said, like it would just go to the dash and basically your career fell off. But no, she find places for them to go on loan to a high team in the first division of Spain, and they're playing week in and week out to see the development. So when they come back, they can add on to the team. I think that's something that the old regime didn't do, and it's something, even though we don't see it on the pitch for the dash, but it is for the future. And I think that's what we need to focus on as well. It is for the future. But of course, sports, you want immediate success. You want to get some, you want to get trophies. You want to get rewards, and that's what the players are meant for. You, I think, as 3 points away from the playoff, Danielle, I think I just want to ask you: is it reachable for the Dash to get into playoffs, or you think they're behind the 8 ball at this point?
I mean, it is technically still achievable just based on where the standings are, but they are going to definitely, even if they were to win out, even if they get 3 points every single of these 4 remaining games, they are also going to have to rely on other teams to lose. You need Louisville to drop some points somewhere. You need North Carolina to drop some points somewhere. So it's I don't think they completely, and this is without me having done like all the math for all the possible scenarios, but I don't think they completely control their own destiny, but like they are in control still at this point. You definitely have uphill battle with the teams that you have left on your schedule. But I think that we kind of saw the level peak in that win at San Diego. And like that to me is kind of like the peak of where the Dash have been all season, against a very good team on the road, scoring a season high in goals, actually consistently threatening in the attack and also looking solid on defense. Now, of course, that was before Natalie got traded. So I think that's kind of the ceiling to me. And I think they can still get back to that level within these last 4 weeks. But I don't know. I think if Jane is able to come back after this week, that's really going to sort out a lot of their issues. I think she controls a lot of the communication on that field, her and Paige together communicating from the back. And I think if there's any inconsistency with lineup changes, whether they replace Chapman on that right side or do something else, I think that Jane's presence can help make up for that in a lot of ways. Because I think they've kind of got the offense under control at this point. It seems like everyone's finding their rhythm. They really know how to attack in transition. The defense is always going to be the question mark to me.
Yeah, I think of course, you have the new acquisition with Malia Berkeley. I think she has done. I think her first game against Chicago. I know Chicago hasn't been their best this season, but you could saw her immediate impact on passing the ball and just controlling the back line. I think Washington was a bigger test. It was a harder test, I think, but it was more exposed on the fullback side than her side, essentially. But I think if you're looking at the game, of course, we're going to the game on the preview for Orlando. Not only you have to look into that game on Friday, you have to look at on Saturday's game, North Carolina Courage against Racing Louisville. Two teams are literally on top of you facing each other. So you're kind of hoping for maybe a draw, at least if you want to do something
Or
like
a
that.
scoreless draw, I think, so that it helps you on goal differential too.
Yeah, so it's like you have to look at that game, and then you have to look at Sunday's game as well, Spirit against the San Diego Wave, and then you kind of have to look at Monday's game as well. Monday game, Angel City versus Kansas City. You think Kansas City, after winning the Shield, you think they might have a drop off to be celebrating, giving Angel City, who's under you, the 3 points. So it's very, like you said, there is still in their hands to 3 points. 3 points is not a lot, but the way how crazy how NWSL is, any team can be anyone at this point. It just you have to try to take control of your destiny as much as you can. Like you said, win the last game 3-3. It's very hard. I think with the opponents that the Dash has, Orlando, Portland, KC, their last game at home, which is that's a hard game. It depends how KC goes and how their vibes are. It's just very tall task for the Dash. I think they have one of the hardest ending schedules to the NW and the NWSL. So for that to meet a possibility, I think before going on the preview for this last game, how impressed? I think I just want to say, just the way the forward line has been achieved. I think the beginning of the season it was a lot of question marks, and now with the new additions and the way they're forming, how impressed are you that the Dash seems more formidable up front than years prior?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is through transition, right? This is a transition league. There's not a ton of little build-up play, but I think that they've done a really good job getting their heads up when they get possession of the ball on defense, and playing a ball out wide and letting Avery carry it, or playing a ball up to Yaz in the middle and finding her. And so I think it's like that quick decision making to me has been the outlet for a lot of their chances. And then I think that they've also kind of settled into even roles on the bench. Messiah Bright has kind of been like a super sub for them at times. Alozier, when she hasn't occasionally been shifted back into the D, she's come on as an offensive sub and kind of settled into that role. Sophie Schmidt, before she got injured, right, had a couple of late goals off the bench. So I think it was kind of, once they established what they wanted their starting 11 to be, everybody on the bench had to also accept that and find ways to impact the game when they came in. And I think the subs did a really good job of that. And I think during that unbeaten streak, it was, it wasn't because the Dash were going up early and then sitting back on their heels. It was they were fighting to come back and find ways to win late in games. Now, you can argue they shouldn't have had to do that in a lot of those instances, but it also kind of shows a resilience and shows that their subs really know who they are, know what to do when they get on the field. And, you're only as strong as your depth and your bench. And so I think that could potentially help them. I think that sometimes if they're not in these last few games, because it is, as Fabrice has said multiple times, like a final, it is extremely high stakes. If things are not gelling, I think subs need to be made earlier. I think there's no risk in doing that at this point, especially if you go down early and you need an equalizer. You might as well, I'm not saying take Ryan off unless she's playing terrible, but you might as well just try and inject some more offensive firepower. And a lot of your clutch goals have come from the bench. So I think it's kind of, you need to be a little more aggressive coaching wise in these last few games if things are not panning out as you want.
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree on your last point of the subs. I think sometimes Fabrice waits for players to create moments, and sometimes the game doesn't wait for you to create moments. The time is clocking down, and you're just waiting for that one goal, the one spark they needed. But sometimes a substitution can inject some life into the game, and so it's very hard to manage at that point. I think you just don't want to take out your best player and put someone else and be the wrong move. But sometimes you have to make risks. Sometimes you have to do uh, injure, inject that spark in your team forcefully if needed. But it's really interesting how the games are going. It's very last four games. Just starting with tomorrow's game with Houston Dash against Orlando Pride. I think when we saw the schedule, when I saw the schedule the first time, I thought, yeah, easy 0 points for the Dash against Orlando Pride. But I think I just turn to events. Orlando loses Barbara Branda. You think, okay, one player does not change the team, but it did for the Orlando Pride. I think they just went into free fall after she got injured. Just winless, winless, winless. The only games they were winning was at the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and it just felt like they would just keep free falling until their recent win against Friday against San Diego was their first win in league play after that game. I think of course, they have Martha, who has been a legend in this game, has been a staple. Of course, you might see a lot of Mexico jerseys tomorrow because Elisette Ovalle will be there, and I think it will be a lot of eyes on her in Houston. So, Daniel, how do you see the Orlando Pride matching up with this Houston Dash?
Yeah, I mean, obviously significantly less dangerous without Banda, but Ovalle, they got her for a reason. They still are a dangerous attacking team. And Fabrice basically said that today. I asked him, how do you see them as being different since Banda's injury? And he said, like, well, it's always nice when their best player is not on the field, but they're kind of the same. They play the same way. They're still going to try and test you every single chance that they get. They have a lot of speed on that team too, as well, I think. And that's something that I think the Dash don't really have. The midfield isn't always great at getting back to help defend in transition. And I sometimes also think even if the Dash defenders have speed, they take too long to make a decision to take a quick step to the ball. I think that's where a lot of opponents' chances come from, is because someone's kind of caught in between thinking, okay, do I step or do I not step? So I think it's still going to be a really, really, really tough test. But I also do think that it is a winnable game. I don't think that it's like, oh, this is for sure going to be 3-0, 4-0. I could be wrong. Obviously, it could. I think we've seen, as we did last week, that it is very possible for it to end up that way, but I don't think it's a certainty whatsoever. I think that the Dash have played really, really well at home since the break. I believe they haven't lost at home since coming back from the break. I think it was right before the break they lost to San Diego at home, and then since then they had a couple draws and a win. Yeah. So they've played pretty well at the Shell. That could help. And I think the game that is kind of like I'm saying, like, oh, they've got no chance, is Kansas City. So you really need the points against Orlando and Portland. And at that point, Kansas City, Kansas City's spot in the standings is not going to change. So their positioning is not necessarily going to bump the Dash, but the Dash need every point they can get because, as you outlined, the schedule is just kind of nuts from here on out. And I think the last match day of the season is really going to determine things for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I think you highlighted a really point on just how the Orlando games. I think what's different from last week's game to this week's game, I think Washington has gelled over the time. Of course, the only player that was missing was Trinity Rodman, and she came back flying. I think the Orlando doing the opposite. They lost a crucial player and try to adjust to the loss and adding new players, and of course, Liz Ovalle came at the right time, healthy, because she had a knock before coming to Orlando, healthy, and now she's on her speed. So I think it was that. I think that game was crucial. Of course, Angel City, the one after. I think that's even the more, if you get that win against Orlando, Angel City has become the next big game because Angel City is right behind your tail. Of course, they lost Alyssa Thompson, but it's just so much factors going in to each game. I think we just have to get, like Fabrice said, we have to take one game at a time. It's hard to because you're just trying to, like you say, plug in the math. You're like, okay, what is this results going to take me? But I think you have to take one game. You have to see Orlando and see how you can I think what you probably interesting point about their speed and their decision making. I think when you look at the Orlando Pride squad, they have speed, but they have players that are experienced. While the opposite for the Dash, they have speed, but players that are unexperienced or rookies at this point. Maggie Graham, who's injured at the moment, she was phenomenal, but you could saw that she hesitated to go forward or hesitate to make that pass or make a pass that she shouldn't done. And so it's like, okay, you have players like that that's are still young and inexperienced. And see, hopefully we'll see how this clashes with the Orlando Pride game. I think I just want to see your predictions for this game. How think the game will go out for tomorrow?
I think I do see it being a multi-goal game. I'm gonna say the Dash are gonna concede first. That's just the way that I see things going based on how the back line has looked lately. And then it's kind of going to be up to can they battle back. So I'll go ahead and say, if I was going to be optimistic, I would say 1-1 draw. But I think actually more likely is a 2-1 loss.
Yeah, I see a 2-0 loss. Yeah, because it's very hard to the matchups. Ovalle, and I think she'll be on every side or Chapman side. Depends how Fabrice organizes the wing backs. I think that's very whoever is defending Ovalle will have a long day. And then of course if Angelina is back with Marta, I think it's just very see how those two will control the midfield. Will Calaprico have a good game? I think she has been the unsung hero on this team. She'll be real defensive, but how she will incorporate against Angelina and Marta. And of course, you have Haley McClellan, who has been the Houston Dash for many years, a new role in midfield. She has done wonders. I think last year, she scored against the Houston Dash and particular style. So she is someone to watch over as well. And that's without going to defense and seeing, who can block Yasmin Ryan and everything. So I think it's very overall, you see how the squad is matched up. It's going to be a tough task for the Houston Dash to outscore or even just score on the Orlando side. But the game is not played on paper; it's played on the pitch, and so we could be wrong, and we could come back and say it'll be like as a 1-0 win for the Houston Dash, and playoffs is here. So it's very hard to predict anything. So that's why soccer is very so unpredictable. I can't. No matter how much you see this, unlike baseball you see kind of see everything coming, but soccer is like not really. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you, Danielle, for staying with us, for coming on. Thank you for just I think your service for Houston sports and for coming on and sharing that little bit insight with us. Can you tell everyone where they can reach you or where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on social media platforms on X or Blue Sky at Danielle_Lerner. You can find all my work at HoustonChronicle.com. I'll be tied up with the Rockets for the foreseeable future, but if there's some playoff soccer to be had with the Dash, then could be back over at the Shell. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. And then quick before you go, how do you see the Rocket season? I think now I want to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be a lot better than last year, but I think Fred VanVleet's ACL injury is a big deal. And so now, instead of just saying, okay, it's last year's team plus Kevin Durant plus some of these other guys they got, it's not just a net positive anymore. You're going to have to really rely on Reed Shepherd in particular to step up. And I think these first couple months of the season are going to be kind of a test of if they think they can go forward with kind of a by committee approach to the point guard position with Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd, and then some Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun handling the ball. If that's not working, we're going to see some trades come mid-December and January before the deadline.
Houston. Sports is never the easiest thing to watch in Houston. Well, that's all we got to do. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully we can have you back when the Rocket season goes down and I'm not doing that. I don't make it a negative way, but it's just like when it's and the end of the tail end, and hopefully I have you back on again. But thank you for everyone. Thank you for us tuning in for another edition of the Orange and Blueprints. We always reach us on biocitysoccer.net or our social media at Twitter, Twitter X, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, Threads. TikTok hasn't been going on, but we'll still be there at Bayou City Soccer. And thank you for our sponsors, Ugly Guppy, Oletos Bravos, and We Got Soccer. So thank you for all. Hopefully next week we'll be back with Diego, and hopefully it's a positive results, and we can talk more about playoffs. If not, there will be a lot of depression going on. But thank you all, and see you soon.